you know, from the first album, I've sung on the albums. I've sung in Gaelic, in Latin, I've sung in Japanese, I've sung in so many different languages, and it's...
For decades, she lived like a mystery wrapped in melody, a that echoed across time but a woman rarely seen. Enya, the ethereal Irish songstress whose music became a global sanctuary for millions, spent her entire career away from the spotlight. No tours, no interviews, no public meltdowns, just music, haunting, celestial, and pure. She became one of the world's best-selling artists, without ever needing fame the way others did, and yet behind her quiet success was a wall of silence, a life guarded like a monastery. Why did Enya disappear between albums? Why was she never photographed with lovers, family, or even friends? Why did her mansion in Killiney remain closed off like a fortress? Fans speculated everything, from secret heartbreaks to spiritual vows. But now at 63, Enya has finally broken her silence, and what she reveals is exactly what many long suspected, but never dared to confirm. It's a confession shaped by loss, shaped by love, and shaped by the painful truth about what it really cost her to become the world's most mysterious superstar. If you've ever found solace in her songs, or wondered what it means to choose solitude over stardom, then stay with us, because Enya's truth is more haunting than her music. From the moment she first whispered Orinoco flow into the world's consciousness, Enya was unlike anyone else. Born Aithne Padregin ni Brownain in Gweedore, a remote village in County Donegal, Enya's life was always steeped in music, but also in silence. Her family was musical, yes, members of the famed Clannad band, but Enya herself was more introspective, more private, more removed. Even as a child, she preferred the quiet rhythm of raindrops on windows to the chatter of a crowd. While her siblings pursued fame in traditional ways, touring and performing, Enya went inward, crafting harmonies alone, layering vocals in solitude. By the time she joined forces with producer Nicky Ryan and lyricist Roma Ryan, she had already decided that her path would be different. No interviews unless absolutely necessary. No live performances. No compromises. It wasn't a publicity stunt. It was a survival mechanism. Enya has now admitted that the very thought of public life terrified her. "I didn't want to lose myself in it," she shared softly in a rare sit-down conversation recorded at her estate. "The noise of the world. It was never for me." For years, tabloids tried to pry. They said she was eccentric. Some said she was lonely. Others believed she was hiding some tragedy. But Enya insisted that she was simply protecting something fragile, her sense of peace. Her process, she explained, required sacred space, the layered, dreamlike vocals that fans fell in love with. They took months of solitude to produce. Every note had to be perfect. Every emotion had to be pure. And for Enya, that meant closing the door to the outside world. "You cannot serve two masters," she confessed. "Either you give yourself to the music or to the fame." At 63, her eyes still shimmer with the same gentle distance that marked her youth. But now there's something else, an acceptance. She knows the world misunderstood her, but she also knows she stayed true to herself. "I chose silence," she says, "because it was the only way I could truly sing." If you ever tried to find Enya, you'd be met with nothing but locked gates, high hedges, and silence. Her home, Manderley Castle, perched on the Irish coast, wasn't just a mansion. It was a fortress. Bought in 1997 for over $2.5 million, the 19th century castle was her sanctuary from a world she never fully trusted. To some, it seemed excessive. Private guards, iron gates, towering walls, and even a panic room. But for Enya, it was not extravagance, it was necessity. Now, for the first time, she's admitting why. "Fame doesn't just invite attention," she revealed in her first real interview in over a decade. "It invites intrusion, and I've lived through that fear." What many don't know is that Enya's life was not untouched by danger. In the early 2000s, she was stalked twice. One man broke into her castle, injuring a maid and leaving behind a chilling letter. Another obsessed fan stabbed himself at the front gate. Enya fled to her panic room and refused to come out for hours. She never spoke publicly about the trauma. "Until now, I built walls around myself," she admitted. "Not just outside, but inside." For years, she lived alone in the castle, surrounded by silence, candles, and the echoes of her own compositions. No romantic partner, no children, no late-night parties, just music and memories. The media called her reclusive, even weird, but in truth, she was deeply wounded. "The quiet was the only place I could hear myself think," she whispered. And after those incidents, I needed that more than ever. But even as she hid, her music soared. Every album release was an event, chart-topping, award-winning, and deeply personal. While most pop stars had entourages and headlines, Enya had shadows and silence. Yet millions felt closer to her than they did to their own friends. Why? Because her music became a mirror, reflecting the ache of those who, like her, never quite fit into the noise of the world. At 63, she now reflects on that chapter with a bittersweet clarity. "I don't regret the walls I built," she says, looking toward the sea. "But I do wish someone had knocked harder on the door." Behind every great artist is often a great love story, or the haunting absence of one. In Enya's case, the latter became part of her legend. Despite worldwide fame, there was never a wedding, never a confirmed relationship, not even a romantic rumor she cared to acknowledge. For decades, fans wondered, did Enya ever fall in love? Was there someone behind the music hidden in the shadows of her life? Now, at 63, she's finally offering a glimpse into her heart and confirming what many long suspected. "Yes, I loved," she confessed softly, "but I also let love go." She didn't name names, but her voice trembled in a way that said the memory still lived in her bones. It happened, she said, before the fame fully took over, before Manderley Castle and the isolation. A man she described as kind, quiet, and patient, someone who didn't care for the spotlight, who saw her not as Enya the global icon, but as Aithne, the girl who played piano in an old Donegal church. They shared quiet nights, long walks, and dreams that didn't include paparazzi or tour buses. But as her music career blossomed into something vast and demanding, the divide grew. He wanted a life. "I wanted silence," she said, eyes misting. "He needed someone who could be there. I was disappearing into the music." She admits now that she could have chosen differently. But then again, the songs we know, the ethereal, aching lullabies, may never have existed if she had. Her solitude was not a punishment. It was the wellspring of her sound. "I gave my heart to music," she said, "and it gave me everything." But it also took. Over the years, a few suitors came and went, but none stayed. Not because she wasn't lovable, far from it, but because her boundaries were impenetrable. The castle walls were more than stone. They were emotional barriers, built brick by brick from fear, regret, and the knowledge that her world was simply too different. "I made peace with it," she says now. Some people are born for companionship. Others are born to hear melodies where no one else can. It's not a statement of bitterness, but of acceptance. And perhaps that's what makes her story so universally moving, not the tragedy of lost love, but the courage to choose a path so few understand. At 63, Enya has finally given a voice to the quiet heartbreak that shaped her life. Not as a victim, but as a woman who chose her own rhythm, even when it meant dancing alone. "In the end," she whispered, "I didn't need someone to complete me. I needed the space to hear the music that had always been inside me." For most artists, legacy is measured by applause, by sold-out arenas and flashing cameras. But for Enya, legacy has always been something quieter, something you feel in the stillness between notes, in the hush before the storm. Now, at 63, she isn't interested in comebacks or curtain calls. She's more concerned with something far more elusive: peace. After decades of speculation, mystery, and myth, Enya has finally come to terms with the truth she never spoke aloud until now. She was never chasing fame. "Not then, not now. Fame was the price I paid to share the music," she explained. But it was never the goal. While critics tried to decode her silence, and fans projected their hopes onto her ethereal image, Enya was always quietly building a world of her own, one where time moved slower, where creativity wasn't consumed by deadlines, and where the soul could breathe. Unlike her peers, she never caved to pressure. No stadium tours, no collaborations just for chart appeal, no reinventions to stay relevant. And yet, she sold over 80 million records, earned 4 Grammy Awards, and became one of the most successful female artists of all time, all without ever chasing the spotlight. At 63, she still works in the same private studio with the same trusted collaborators, Nikki and Roma Ryan. Their process is sacred, unchanged by trends or time. It's not about quantity, she smiles. It's about creating something timeless. Fans continue to wait, sometimes years, for a new Enya album, and she knows this. But there's no pressure, only patience, because the music will come when it's ready, just like it always has. These days, she spends more time in her garden, walking the grounds of her beloved Mandalay castle, drinking tea by the sea. The same woman who once hid from the world now finds beauty in its quiet moments. I used to be afraid that I'd be forgotten, she admitted. But now I see that I was never meant to be remembered for being seen. I was meant to be remembered for being heard. That revelation, simple, profound, is the truth we all suspected. That Enya's silence wasn't an absence. It was a gift, a defiant whisper in an age of noise. A choice to protect the purity of her art, even if it cost her the ordinary joys of life. And perhaps that's what makes her story so rare. In a world where everyone is shouting to be noticed, Enya reminded us that sometimes the most powerful sound is silence. As the sun sets over the Irish Sea, casting golden light across her castle walls, Enya stands exactly where she's always wanted to be. Not in the spotlight, but in peace. And now, at 63, she's finally said aloud what we always knew in our hearts, that hers was never the story of a recluse, but the story of a woman brave enough to choose her own silence.